For many of us, there is the feeling that spirituality is separate from day-to-day life or what we call the real world. The fact that we say, I don't have time for spirituality suggests we feel it's separate. There's my day-to-day life, and then there's something called spirituality. This idea is perpetuated by this act of seated meditation. That only when I'm sitting, meditating, am I exploring spirituality. There is value to seated meditation such as this. I can become completely focused and go very deep into the experiences of being a spirit, a soul. But my final objective is to carry that experience of being a soul with me as I go through the day. When something is natural, it comes easily, automatically. It is innate. Suggesting once upon a time, I did move through the day in a spiritual state. It was natural. I thought and walked and looked and spoke, everything from a spiritual stage. And then with time, I started to reduce and lose that power to be naturally spiritual. So I begin seated, and as I become stronger, I start to move through the day again spiritually, aware I am a soul, aware everyone else is a soul. Living peacefully and with pure intentions. I know I am destined to return to that state. And in some ways, that absolute faith, that deep belief, makes the journey natural as well. No doubts, no worries. Aware that every step is bringing me closer to that original state of living spiritually, effortlessly, naturally. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti, good evening, and welcome to Interview with the Raj Yogi. Tonight's session: what does a naturally spiritual state of being look like, feel like? And so, what was really inspiring this was just starting to really appreciate just how subtle spirituality is. There's just been so much emphasis. It's always been, but in the Raj Yoga course, the emphasis on awareness and that it really affects everything. And so, and I know that this aspect of natural is something that also uh, that you value a lot. So perhaps maybe we'll just start one for a very broad way in terms of when you hear natural, um, this naturalness of spirituality, naturalness of soul consciousness. What are your thoughts and feelings about that?
I suppose the first thing that comes to many people's minds when they hear natural is the idea that it's effortless, that without any effort, it's happening, so naturally occurring. There's no intervention, it's just flowing very easily. Um, and what's interesting is that very often spirituality, Raj Yoga especially, is described as an unlearning. So the idea that we've become, if you will, unnatural. The unnatural has become natural, um, in that we're restoring what was once natural. So think about infants and just how, without effort, they're very naturally innocent, very naturally cute, very naturally pure. They're not making any effort. And then we kind of change. Um, how can we get back to that state? In this case, suggesting we were naturally aware that we are souls, spiritual beings. We didn't even have to make any effort. We weren't capable of anything else. What if that was our original or natural state, and now we're simply unlearning, returning to that state, remembering?
I hope souls don't find this disturbing uh, experience listening to me share, but I was quite young in the study, and I know I'd share this with Sister Judy, but it was early morning. I was on my way to the center, and I saw a porcupine upside down, like in distress. It was far away. I was on the opposite end, the side of the median of the road that I was, but it crossed my mind. Um, what does it I don't want I want to make sure I'm moving along in spirituality in a way where I can be undisturbed, but I'm not uncaring. Um, and it came to mind when I saw this porcupine, because I do find that sometimes students share that they grapple in terms of they're trying not to be affected, so they actually get quite cold and disconnected, or they want to make sure that they're caring, but then they sort of go on the, they they overdo it, and there's just issues with expectations, and just not a natural sense of character. So that's why it's quite fascinating how this study is moving you along in such a way that there's only, this natural sense of goodness. It's others feel comfortable around you, but you feel comfortable just being very real. I find that extremely appealing, but at the same time, it is no small feat in terms of getting to that destination. So, what has that been like for you in terms of really wanting that, and how we can sort of sometimes move off into corners and pockets that we find ourselves really even less natural perhaps than we maybe we're body conscious at a time, but it can get quite awkward in this study.
Um, this kind of touches on one of the qualities that I really like a lot because I think it is deeply connected to natural, and that is balance. So, for example, integrating spirituality into my day-to-day life, the balance of silence or stillness and action. And we're so used to being at one extreme or the other. And natural spirituality is all about balance, the coexistence of seemingly two seeming opposites. And so you're talking about the balance of detachment and or being beyond influence and caring. And they're actually essential. The interesting thing about these seeming paradoxes, it is essential for the other one to exist in order for it to be healthy or natural. So if I am super caring but easily influenced, then I actually can't provide accurate care. I remember once there, we were talking about EMS, and it's incredible how detached they are or uninfluenced they are when they arrive at a scene. And because of that, they're able to draw on their vast experience and actually accurately address what's in front of them. The Someone once proposed, what if they arrived at a scene and it was a family member? Would they? What if they lost? Then they would probably be asked to leave, because they would be so affected that they could no longer provide care. So the coexistence of these seeming opposites is this balance is a part of natural. The integration of these things means that I'm in a very healthy or natural state. So natural spirituality demands actually these balances and that it be integrated into day-to-day life to qualify as natural. If I'm constantly only spiritual while I'm seated in a room with special music and special light, that's artificial. That's not natural. I use that to get a handle on spirituality, but I can't really say I am naturally spiritual until I'm able to move about in that state, maintain that inner stillness and peace, even in a very noisy or peaceless situation.
I don't know if this is a difficult question to answer because this isn't certainly meant to just be a bunch of words. But what is it about this personality of being a soul, the eternal personality of the soul, the original personality of the soul, that one can be both uninfluenced and yet very warm, very caring? Because I think the souls may not even realize it, but they may actually just still try. I'm going to try to be uninfluenced. I'm going to try to be caring, and even just what does it mean to consider oneself to be a soul? I've heard a lot of different different definitions from different students. So it seems like it's a journey for us to experiment with that, to feel what that feels like, and to know when I'm actually off the mark too.
One of the ways I like to describe soul consciousness or that experience, that stage, is full and free. So, full means all of these amazing capacities which we really value when we're talking about quality of life, things like caring, loving, kind, compassionate, free, all of these qualities. I am completely, those are fully emerged when I am soul conscious. Now, the free part is that they become unconditional. And people like this word unconditional. What that means is there's no strings attached, no conditions on when that full capacity will be expressed. So it's not that I'm just kind to people that are kind to me, but I'm kind to everyone because there's nothing else in there to express. Um, so this idea that it would be effortless, that's an impossible state to emerge when I'm not soul conscious. Conditions always come up because when I'm not soul conscious, there's something called ego present. So it's only when I'm soul conscious, completely emerged, the capacities of the soul, nothing else is there. And so it's unconditional. It's all I have to express from within.
It's interesting listening to your share because it really does feel like, what does soul consciousness mean to someone? When we're talking about this, have I actually had meaningful experiences of moving into that world of that experience? And I think a part of the reason why I was reflecting on that too, because it felt like that was also very much connected to being able to be aware of others as souls in a meaningful way. Um, because sometimes I think that we see someone in front of us and we kind of separate this personality from the soul, the way we say the soul, but it's actually the soul who's actually operating that way. And if I keep compartmentalizing things, and especially starts with me, um, when it's about transforming, and perhaps maybe it's hard to articulate, but sometimes when you see these stories of, these two characters and one of them suddenly has amnesia or they're being brainwashed or something like that, that individual is still talking to that person. It's just trying to wake them up. And so sometimes I know you use that example of the actor. And this has come up a lot in terms of the quality of that experience and also my quality of that experience of others. So, just for your journey, have you felt those two go hand in hand?
Earlier today, I was listening to another interview, and it was talking about the question was about a soul who was really struggling to change their attitude towards someone else, knowing how powerful attitudes are. They're very concerned that this somewhat critical attitude be transformed so that the relationship can change, the atmosphere isn't affected, etc. So, what advice could be given? And of course, top of the list was have soul conscious vision. And what that means, the acting, and it does actually work. I do experiment with it, and it does actually naturally change the feelings in the heart. And that's part of natural, is that it's not just theory, it becomes practical. It doesn't just stay an idea in my head. I actually have a change of heart. And the idea is indeed that I'm looking at someone, even the way they're acting, and I still am aware of the actor inside the costume, just like in a play. On the stage, the actor is wearing a costume, they might behave a certain way, but I know what they're really like off stage, outside. I know it's very natural. So, of course, this all assumes that I have 100% faith that we are souls, which I do. I do believe we are souls. Otherwise, the ideas of brotherhood, harmony, they're never going to be possible. We will only see differences. So, looking through what we call the third eye, the eye of spirituality, will naturally change my feelings.
So, when you share that, is it really I need to actually have experienced that about myself? And I've experienced that in others because I've heard of students not being able to tell the difference from, okay, I'm thinking it, but I'm actually not accessing feelings, and I may not even be aware of that.
There's something I think it's very useful to get a handle on early in any endeavor. We've talked about before how obvious it is in the physical realm that we could talk here about doing push ups, and I can't really say I've done a push up until that talk becomes a walk. I actually do the push up. That's very different in spirituality, easily confused. That I can think I'm a soul, but I actually don't do soul consciousness. And I don't realize there's a big gap between the theory and the practical experience. I need to get a handle on that early on because that's deeply affected to the question you just asked. That's instant feedback that I haven't been converting an idea into an experience if my feelings aren't changing. There's really nothing, there's no method or technique or anything. I just need to back up and make sure that I'm actually doing soul consciousness, not just thinking about it and checking the box saying, yeah, no, I know I'm a soul. I know I'm a soul. I even feel that, yes, but I'm not experiencing it. So has the theory converted into practical?
Do you feel that, when we say soul conscious, it's like a whole world? It's a whole identity. It's a whole, it's like life, and perhaps maybe not realizing it's not a concept. And even though, again, we're just using words, but to be able to distinguish if that's happening.
It is the greatest paradigm shift we can experience. It's a complete reframing of our existence. And yeah, I mean, everything, we compare it to dying alive. It's massive. And there are certain signs, whether certain things become very natural. If I have made that shift, one way we talk about is moving from one room to another room, then I'm not just looking through the window between the rooms while staying in the first room, but I actually go through the door. And there's a huge reframing, and that reframing is experienced by a change in my feelings.
I remember I was very young in the study, and there was actually a course, I think it was called The Powers of the Soul, or the Eight Powers, or whatnot. And so we haven't had that course in years, right? And I remember you were one of the facilitators and mentioning that if I got soul consciousness, all of those capacities, those eight powers would be very natural. Um, yeah, I know we don't offer that anymore, perhaps maybe because it kind of gets misleading that we're trying to directly focus on these capacities. And I'm wondering also if this is, again, when I go into the world of being a soul, the personality of the feeling, the experience of being a soul, that's where all these different capacities are. But in the sense that I need to have experienced these different, facets, I suppose you can say, of who I am, and it's not like I'm sitting here saying, okay, what am I supposed to feel now? But really a very wholesome experience of what it feels like to be who I really am.
Yes. Sorry, the question was, would that be happening if I really got soul consciousness, everything happens naturally? Is that the question?
I guess it never crossed my mind about that course at that time because I was very young in the study. So I wouldn't have understood what you were talking about at all. Like I did not know even what soul consciousness meant for a long time, right? It's a concept. You think you're being nice. There's a lot of things, or it's a hope. It's a hope suddenly, you'll feel detachment. It's like as if you don't even know what the personality of being a soul is. And then you're told about these, different powers that you have. It was very technical, I suppose, intellectual. I would say now I reflect on it, I don't know if I don't think I would have been able to make the connection between the two.
I've always liked that story about Hanuman, that this is a character in the epic myth, the Ramayana. And there comes a point when things are looking really dire. And the only way that the souls can be saved is if this life-giving herb is retrieved. And so Hanuman is told that he must go to some mountain and bring back some herb that he's supposed to identify among all of this other flora. um, and so he's a bit concerned because A, there's not a lot of time, and this place is very far away that he's supposed to get to, and he's not sure how he's going to make it in time. And even when he gets there, he's not sure how he's going to identify the herb that he's supposed to bring back. And everyone's looking at him like he's mad, but if they're going, of course you can do this. He's saying, but no, I mean, I don't think I can get there fast enough, and I don't know how I'm going to figure out what to bring back. And they finally they tell him, you don't know who you are. And he's like, what are you talking about? He says, you are the son of the god of the wind. I mean, this is shocking news. You are the son of the god of the wind. Now, what's interesting is he actually accepts it. They tell him, he's like, oh my goodness, I had no, this, the minute he's had this capacity all along, but the minute that he's aware that he is the son of the God, now those capacities emerge. And he's able to fly like the wind. He can get to that mountain in record time, flying like the wind. And of course, he's like the wind, he's very strong. So he can't figure out which one. So he just brings back the whole mountain, flying again. Now, he could always do that, but it was completely dependent on unlocking his awareness. He could try really hard without unlocking his awareness, and I don't know if it would be successful. But the moment his awareness is unlocked, suddenly these capacities emerge. There is a principle like this in movement as well, that when the body is aligned a certain way, its range of motion is locked down. And when we align the body in a different way, the range of motion and even the strength is opened up. It all depends on the alignment. It's there, but it's latent. And if I can get the right alignment, I can unlock this potential. So, what is the alignment? The awareness, I am a soul. Then this potential is unlocked.
Thank you, Sister Judy. I know that we started late, so we're ending late. What's new? So perhaps we'll have a little reflection.
There's always two ways to go about something. One way is very difficult, very laborious, very complicated. And the other way is very easy and efficient and light, simple. That even applies to quality of life, to emerging the capacity, the greatness of the human spirit. I could wait for very challenging situations that test me and struggle and labor, and I will have some results. Or I can sit quietly and easily and very sincerely remember I am a soul. My true nature is peace, nonviolence. And depending on the sincerity of my effort, I can even in a second unlock the potential of the self. Very easy, very simple, very efficient. Will I choose the difficult path or the easy, that is, natural path? Om Shanti.
Om Shanti. Thank you for joining with us this evening. So just a warm reminder, experiencing is really where it's at. So we do have our evening meditations on Thursdays. And so, of course, we have that coming up at the Academy, 6:30 to 7 o'clock, all of Thursdays except stat holidays at the Academy. We also have drop-in sessions at the Inner Peace Center Mondays. It's in English. Wednesdays, it's Wednesdays? I believe it's Wednesdays in Hindi, and that's 6:30 to 7:30 at the Inner Peace Center. We also have Learn About Meditation, and that session is coming once a month, and it is happening this Saturday, October 18th. So it's 12:15 to 1:30. And we have Diwali coming up. So we have another lovely session, The Light Within, I believe it's called. and it's from 2 o'clock to 3:30 at the Central Library. All of that information is all on the website as well as Eventbrite. And then we also have the public program in light of Diwali, October 26th at Scarborough, again, 6 o'clock to 8 p.m. Again, that's on the website as well. We would love to have you there. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us at Calgary at ca.brahmakumaris.org. And of course, all of the online sessions, we really do encourage practicing and experiencing. Thank you for joining with us. Om Shanti.